Good evening, crafting friends. I'm Dorene Decibus, and welcome to Simply Stamping Sunday from Begins with Ink and Paper. I forgot to say that. Sorry about that. Tonight we are on week 2 of the Painted Lavender, and so I'm just trying to make sure my camera is set pretty good so we can see everything. I think that looks good. All right, well, I'm going to start with some show and tell. I only have 3 cards to show you, but I made 36 of these yesterday. They were for my swaps, for the new catalog swap. And so what demonstrators do is someone will organize the swap. You make 11, I make 12, so I have one. And then the hostess keeps one, and you get 10 cards back that are all different, so it's kind of cool. So the first swap that I entered was a monochromatic new in color swap, and I signed up for Summer Splash, and here I used lots of new color product. I have the Summer Splash cardstock here. I used Spotlight on Nature and stamped the leaves and the thanks in Summer Splash ink. And then I have 2 different pieces of the Summer, of the In Color Designer Series paper, the 6x6, and a piece of the Summer Splash glitter paper, and then the Glimmer Gems. So I really like how this came out. My second swap was with excuse me, the Country Flower set. So this was new stamp sets, and I used the Wildflower Designs to stamp this frame and the backing, and then I stamped the flowers, colored them in with blends, did the same with the bucket, and used the Country Woods Designer Series paper in a couple of different ways. I used a piece as the backing, and then I had a 3 1/4 by 3 1/4 square that I cut diagonally and separated apart, put the framed image over it, and added the flowers, added some of the gray pearls, and used the Simply Said stamp set Hello for the greeting. And I also used the new basic beige cardstock. So I like how that one came out too. And then my other swap had to use the Spotlight on Nature, so I used the flowers, I used the thanks, I stamped both of those in the Momentum ink, and then I used the Petunia Pop and the Shy Shamrock blends to color them in. I used the In Color Glimmer Gems, the bordering ribbon in the Petunia, a piece of the Petunia cardstock, and then I don't know if you can, how well you can see that. I think you can see it pretty well. I also used the eyelet embossing folder to put on the back. So those are my three swaps. It doesn't look like I did a lot of stamping, but as I said, I made 12 of each of those, so that was a lot of stamping. When I get my swaps back, I will share them in one of my lives. So the 2 stamp sets that I am using this month for our Simply Stamping Sunday is the Painted Lavender set and the Simply Set set. The Painted Lavender just has some beautiful flower and grassy kinds of images, a little butterfly as well. And then the Simply Set is just simple greetings. Last week, the 2 cards we made, we used the same color palette. We used the Shy Shamrock, Pretty in Pink, and the Petunia Pop, the new in colors. The first card we created was this. We used basic beige as well, and just stamped some images on a piece of basic beige, mounted it on the Petunia Pop, and then mounted it on a piece of the basic beige. And then the second card we used, using those same 3 colors, we stamped on a piece of the basic beige and then mounted it on basic white thick. And on this one we used a sponge to add some Petunia Pop around the edges. So that was last week's cards. This week we are going to be adding to the mix some of the Designer Series paper that coordinates with this stamp set. So I've got all my stamps mounted, so I'm going to move those out of the way. The first card, so I'm going to make 3 cards tonight because the first card is just so easy. So what I'm going to need for the first card is a piece of crumb cake cardstock that measures 5.5 by 8.5. Again, these measurements will be in the comments when I'm done, and they'll also be in the description on my YouTube channel, so you can find them in both of those places. And then I need a piece of gorgeous Grape cardstock that measures 5 3/8 by 4 1/8. And then I have a beautiful piece of the Designer Series paper. The back has a checked on it. The front has some just beautiful images along with a butterfly. This piece measures 4 by 5 1/4. Now the Designer Series paper, I've used it a lot. As you can see in the package, there's lots of pieces. It's called Perennial Lavender. It's 12 by 12. There are some great designs in here. I don't even know if I have all of the designs because I've been using this paper so frequently. But we'll be using this in tonight's presentation. Okay, so this is a pretty easy card to make. So I'm going to start by just folding my piece of cardstock in half and burnishing it with my bone folder. I'm going to then do some stamping with the gorgeous Grape ink, and this is just going to be a simple hello card. So I'm going to grab the hello stamp and just ink it up in the gorgeous Grape ink. And then I'm going to be stamping this right at the top. So don't forget, you can stamp on Designer Series paper. So don't ever hesitate to not stamp on Designer Series paper because it just looks like it's part of the paper. So like I said, this is just going to be one of those super quick and easy cards to make. If I'm going to use this to just send a letter to someone, and I'm just adding now my adhesive to the back of the gorgeous Grape cardstock, and I'm going to center this on the front of the cardstock, and card number 1 is done. You can't get much easier than that, and it's just a beautiful card. So I'm going to set this aside. We'll get a look at it again towards the end of the evening. The next card I'm going to make is also just as easy. So it's another hello card. I'm using some of the butterflies, and I'm just using a tiny bit of Designer Series paper, but there's more that I'm going to do, and I'll show you that in just a minute. So not many supplies with this one. I have 2 pieces of Designer Series paper. One measures 1 inch by 5.5, and the other one measures 1 1/4 inches by 5.5. And I'm just going to mount these on top of each other. So I'm just going to add my adhesive, and they're the same length, but not the same width, so you'll get some nice purple showing on the edges of this. So there, that is done. And I have a piece of 4 1/4 by 11 piece of cardstock. This is basic white thick. So when I'm using white as a base, I always use the basic white thick. And I'm going to first, I didn't do this when I first made the card, but I decided it would be easier to do it this way. I'm going to add this paper where I want it to go onto the front. So I'm just going to give a little border on the side. I'll show you what I'm going to do with that next. Then I am going to take my gorgeous Grape ink again and stamp the hello. And that's going to go right in. Just want to make sure it's all inked up. And that's going to go right here in the bottom right hand corner. And then using the Highland Heather, I'm going to stamp some butterflies. So I'm going to start with the one that I'm doing over on this side. So I'm only going to ink up that one stamp. And then I am going to stamp it like it's flying off of the page. Then I am going to ink up both and have them flying in the other direction. Okay, so that's all the stamping I need to do for this card. But I want to add a little texture to it. And I'm going to do that with my paper cutter and the scoring blade. So I'm going to start by going in a little bit, about 1/8 of an inch, and I just went and did cutting. So there'll be a little cut in this. That's okay, I can fix it later, but I'm going to score it, so it's really important that you use the right blade, but that's, like I said, I will fix it later. And I'm going to go in to another 1/8 of an inch and do another score going up and down to the crease. And then I'm going to do one more. I'm going to go to just doing these score marks at 1/8 of an inch. And then I'm going to come over here and do 2. And this is just going to add some beautiful texture to the front of the card. And there we go. And it will come up just around, just to the butterflies. So you can see that, hopefully. And I'll show you what it looks like when you don't cut through the cardstock. So that is something you always want to be careful about when you're doing scoring, is that you use the scoring blade and not the cutting blade. But you don't really notice it until you go on the inside. So I think the card is still okay. So let me just put that one aside, and we'll go on to, that's our second card. So look how quickly we've already made 2 cards. So now let's go on to the third card. And this one I am going to be using a piece of Highland Heather cardstock that measures 8.5 by 5.5, and I'm going to fold that in half and burnish the fold. There we go. And then I am going to also need, let me just pull out all of the cardstock we're using. This is the card we'll be making. Isn't that the cutest little thing? I love this card. I love the little batch of stamping with the little petite flowers. But for this one, this is going to be the inside. So for these layers, I have a piece of gorgeous grape that measures 4 by 5 1/4, and then a piece of the Painted Lavender Designer Series paper that measures 3 3/4 by 5, and we're just going to mount that right onto each other, and then this is going to go onto the front of the card. And then I'm just going to put this right on the front of the card. So we're just using all this beautiful lavender and I mean the heather and the purple and then the lavender. So that's the front of our card. I'm just going to set that aside. On this little piece, it is a piece of Highland Heather that measures 3/4 of an inch by 3 3/4 of an inch. I want it to be able to go right across the front of the card. And in the gorgeous grape ink, I am going to be stamping the hello. We're using this hello on all 3 cards, so they will be really nice note cards to use. And I'm going to stamp this right at the end of the right side of this little banner. And then I am going to attach this to the front of the card, about 2/3 of the way down. There we go. So that's what the front of the card looks like. Then I have a 2-inch square and a 2 1/4 inch square. I'm going to be doing stamping on this. And I didn't show you on the inside of the card, I have another piece of 3 3/4 by 5 that I'm also going to do a little stamping on. So I'm going to start with this piece here, and I'm going to use some Old Olive ink, and I'm going to stamp all of the vines and the grassy pieces on this. So I'm going to start over here and stamp that first part, and then I'm going to grab, I know I must have a piece of scrap paper somewhere so I don't get it all over the place, and I'm not seeing a piece, so I'll just stamp on the back of something. There we go. And then I'm going to ink this up again, and I'm going to stamp right off the side so we have a full piece of the grass and the stems there. And then on the inside of the card, I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm not going to stamp the whole thing across. I'm going to stamp just about 3/4 of it. So I just have a little piece of the green there. Okay, that finishes up with this. Now I do have to clean my butterflies because I have inked up both, and for this card I'm only going to be inking up the smaller one. So I just want to make sure there's no ink on that when we get to that. So the flowers are these, they're just little tiny. It's just a little tiny image, and I'm going to be stamping it both in the Gorgeous Grape and the Highland Heather. I'm going to start with the Highland Heather. And with this, you just ink it up, and you're just going to be stamping it up and down all over the image. So I'm going to do that on both. I'm just putting it at different levels. And I'm going to do the same with the Gorgeous Grape. So there's the Highland Heather. I'm going to keep that out because we need it for butterflies. Just make sure I've got the Gorgeous Grape now. And now I'm going to go in with the darker purple. And just fill in those spaces so we have both colors of purple. So you can see that. And then I'm going to do the same on the inside. And again, I'm just going at different layers so the florals will be nicely filled in. Okay, so that part's done. We're done with the Gorgeous Grape. Now the only stamping left are the butterflies. And I am going to put one butterfly inside the card, and then on the front I'm going to add 3. So and I think I'll add a 4th right up there. Okay, there we go. So now all of our stamping is done, and now it's time to just put things together. So this piece for the inside, I'm just going to add some adhesive. Just going to center that in. Gives us plenty of room to write a little something. And then I'm going to add this to the piece of gorgeous grape. So just center that on. And then I'm going to grab some dimensionals and I'm just going to pop this on the front. And we're going to put that right over the centerpiece. So there we go. And that is card number 3. Look at that, 21 minutes and we made 3 cards. Of course, you would have to cut the paper at home, but these cards do not take long at all to make, and as you can see, they all use that designer series paper to help it just add some interest and dimension to the card. So thank you so much for joining me either on the Facebook Live tonight or on the replay. Make sure you say hello, say where you're from, and of course if you're joining me on my YouTube channel. I appreciate you watching my videos and being a part of my crafting journey. So that's it for tonight. I will be back Friday night with another edition of Funfold Friday, and I will be back Sunday night with the last week of the Painted Lavender set. I hope you have a great week, and it is supposed to in the Northeast be really warm this week, so be ready for that if you live in New England. But otherwise, I hope everyone has a fantastic week. Good night, everyone. Bye-bye.